The real Final Four. That's what we're here to talk about, guys, right?
Yes.
That's what we're here to talk about. Now, here's how we're gonna do it. Go back and if you haven't heard, we broke down the bracket to narrow the top Disney Pixar films down to the Final Four. Final Four is Lion King, Little Mermaid, WALL-E, and Toy Story. So here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna give my top four, your top four. We're gonna talk about each movie. I want to break down each movie. Then we're gonna come up with the top four. Is that fair, guys?
Yeah.
So let's start with Little Mermaid. Jay, when was the last time you saw it before? And give us your take on Little Mermaid.
So I mean, my thing with like Little Mermaid is I like kind of categorize like what were their strengths and weaknesses. Little Mermaid has a strong villain, and I mean strong. That's the key thing there. And I'm a big thing on like villains. I think that really is what makes a show or a movie. And so that was key there. They have the best song, Under the Sea. I can still just bop to it as long. Whenever, even if I had it, the last time I watched it when I was like 7 years old. But and Sebastian's adorable. So they got an adorable. It follows the usual Disney movie tropes, but the reason Little Mermaid is in the Final Four is because those are the strongest of like a lot of the movies that you could pair it up against. And I kind of forgot how good like they were until I actually watched it again. I was like, all right. I don't remember why Orion was all aboard the Little Mermaid train.
Yeah, a lot of things on what Jay said. I mean, and like, I feel like Little Mermaid kind of stood out because like, it was, I guess you could quantify it as a Disney princess movie, but Ariel didn't really feel like a princess. Like, it was kind of cool to be into Ariel.
She's an annoying teenager.
Yeah, so that was a little different. And yeah, like Jay said, villain was strong. I feel like, you had a good contrast of like very creepy images in that movie and kind of the typical Disney fare. Like, there's scenes where like, the shark is really menacing and nasty looking for being a Disney movie. And even like, when they go to the part where like her father is transformed into like the little weird sea worm by the villain, like there's some really weird and creepy images in that movie. And it's kind of like, that's kind of cool when you go back and look at it. So, yeah, and it had a kind of a good, followable plot. Nothing too crazy, but simple for a Disney thing. But it was easy to follow. You had characters that you like. A villain that you hated and wanted to lose. So, yeah, overall a good job with that one. It's kind of one of the examples you can look at as like a classic Disney movie.
All right, so here's the thing. I went back and watched it, got myself caught up in this movie. And I flipped on this movie. I haven't watched this movie. I flipped on this movie. All right, let me tell hot take here.
Oh.
This movie, it doesn't hold up. Okay, this movie
Does
is
it?
no, absolutely not. It does not hold. This movie's awful. This movie is horrendous. I mean, unbelievable. Okay, first of all, the reason why it doesn't hold up is because no parent now is going to show this movie to their kid because of the image that it shows and projects to little girls. First of all, Ariel's emotional. She's unstable. She's a hoarder.
She's a teenager.
Exactly. It's not a good representation of what you want your kid to be. I mean, it's accurate. She throws all of her whole life away to go try to be with some older dude. She basically leaves her life, leaves her family, a family that has kept her stable, but she's emotionally wrecked. So she leaves her entire life to go with some handsome looking older dude. So it's like leaving her entire area. It's fucked up. I mean, there's fish. It's a movie about fish, and they're eating fish. Remember when the cook is serving sushi? It's fucked up. There's
right, the
slaves in there.
creepy images that I was talking about.
All of the fish are slaves in the movie to King Triton.
Oh, that's a good point.
The sharks have to be, bringing the chariot. The other thing too is it's all about looks. The whole movie is centered about women don't have to speak to be important. All they have to do is look. Okay, The whole premise. You don't have to speak. Don't have a personality.
Oh no!
Don't have
You
a brain.
it.
All you have to do is just have a set of big tits
God.
and look good and look pretty and blah blah blah, and you'll be fine. So absolutely. I mean,
Scorched.
this movie is just
man.
holy fuck.
You took a
All sorts of
flamethrower.
fucked up.
I told you we should have went with Mulan.
All sorts of fucked up. Now think about. I'm telling you, go back and watch it now. You're gonna be like, oh no, this movie was made in
I tried not to be too critical of a
No,
Disney Pixar movie.
Listen.
All right.
They have done some great stuff, but this movie, man, woo. Like the thing with the voice, that's the most egregious part. That they told women, "Hey, you don't need to speak. You don't need to have a voice. Just look good and look pretty." I mean,
no.
So I would encourage everybody to look at this in a new perspective. How about that?
That's fair.
Fine.
And-
I mean, it wasn't going to win for me anyway.
No,
and I
it's
promise-
definitely one of the weaker ones.
I was trying to be nice to it, trying not to hurt Ryan's feelings too much. But apparently,
yeah.
he hurt his own feelings.
I promise that the other three, I'm not gonna like come down with the sledgehammer. You know, there's little notes.
well,
and
the
stuff
other
like that.
three you can't as bad.
Right, but this one, man, holy wow, that was some brutal. So, Broski, you lead the way on the Lion King. How about that?
Okay. So the Lion King, I think going back, one of the things that stood out to me the most about the Lion King is just the cast of voice actors that are in it. Like, I mean, and even just looking at where they are now in their careers and everything. But you go down, I mean, Darth Vader is Mufasa. Like, you know, there's just some good voices in that movie. I mean, even apparently, you know, speaking of Seth Rogen, apparently Seth Rogen will be the new Pumbaa in the new remake of Lion King, I think. But like, you go down to those guys, I mean, I forget his name, but that's the biggest role that the guy who voiced Pumbaa's ever did. And, you know, Nathan Lane, I know him from voicing Timon. I mean, you know, I think that's one of the things that really stood out to me. For an animated movie, the voices, you know, really sold the characters. And, you know, Lion King, it's like, it's a coming of age story, but it's animals. So it's kind of like relatable for people, even though it's a lion, but it's still kind of like, okay, yeah, he's growing up, you know, he's living in the shadow of his father. His father's the king of the, you know, the pride and everything, and he's trying to live up to his father's name, but eventually, you know, he realizes he doesn't have to be his father. It's perfectly fine, you know, and going through, you know, moments of tragedy where he loses his father, it can be very relatable. It's a real situation. So I think that's another big thing about The Lion King, the emotional grabs it has. And another thing, well, Scar is a good villain. You know, you can't go wrong with Scar. He definitely hits evil on the head. And then, you know, you've got your comedic characters, which is perfect for a Disney movie. They're all over the place. And visually, I feel like, you know, The Lion King, very colorful and stuff like that. The way, you know, they did the African savannah and everything with the jungles. You know, it just really stands out to me. The music, you know, I feel like I could go on and on. Lion King, it's up there. You know, for me, when I think of top 3 Disney classic movies, that one's up there for sure.
I'll take this one next, and Jay, you can kind of finish up. I think Broski hit everything on the handle. This checks every single thing, and I think this does hold up. The two notes that Broski didn't hit was this definitely may be the worst death and biggest emotional moment in any Disney film. Is that agreed upon?
Definitely, yeah.
Spoiler alert: Mufasa dies.
Well,
Spoiler alert.
okay,
I don't
yeah.
want to. I hope I didn't spoil it for anybody. But I mean, but is that the worst death in Disney history?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
I mean,
yeah.
most emotional, right?
Well, like, it wasn't bad until you have Simba like crawling on top of him. And
just
that's the part you're like, oh no.
Oh no! Like the whole scene. I think that was it. It hits every high. It hits every low. Like you said, visually, songs. I mean, I Can't Wait to Be King
Yeah.
is a. I mean, that's. I mean, and How's it been? Somebody's
Oh, hey.
You know, everybody. I mean, how many times have you had a little kitten or a little child and held him up? To, the cliff? So there's plenty of things. One thing I didn't learn, I got a geography lesson in this one. I didn't know that New Jersey was in Africa. You know,
yeah, that's a good point.
Because remember, they said, "Oh, our kingdom is every place except for the shadowy place. That's New Jersey over there." We all know the shadowy place is New Jersey. So I didn't know that was in Africa, but that was my. So Jay, give us a quick finish up on the Lion King.
Yeah, I don't know how much more I can really say. I mean, it's timeless. The characters are fantastic. I mean, Timon and Pumbaa are just my favorite. That's what has always sold me when I was a little kid. Yeah. It still sells me today. They're just awesome, and I mean, the rest of everything else in the story holds up.
Yeah,
that's why.
All right, so
even if we would have had Ryan like The Little Mermaid, The Lion King was definitely.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Are we in agreement that Little Mermaid's number 4 on this list?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I was gonna say that regardless. Before you trashed it, was still number 4.
Yeah. So that's all we're giving right now. Little Mermaid is number 4. Now, I'm going to lead the way on WALL-E. How about that? I rewatched this movie, and it's another. I think this movie was dark and deep, and we said that it was philosophical, and I find that this is a better movie than it is a Disney Pixar movie, if that makes sense. Do you guys know where I'm going with this? Like, this is it's got some philosophical stuff. I mean, the first 15 minutes, maybe, I don't know what other first 15 minutes in cinematic history. This is up there. I mean, just how WALL-E is, how you pull apart little things like that, and even, you know, as he's piling up the garbage, and then you realize the entire skyline is garbage. I mean, just all those little hints and details. There's virtually no dialogue in it. What they envision the humans to be, and how the humans. I think the one line is, "I don't want to survive. I don't want to survive. I want to live." All of those things are just they hit you, and you're like, oh, like gut check. So I think that this isn't a great Disney movie, but it is a fantastic movie. What do you guys think about that, Jay? What do you think?
I mean, I said this, I think, in the last one. WALL-E is my favorite. It's so, like, as you get older, it gets better. Kind of how you're saying, a kid might not grasp what's going on as much as a adult would. Like, this is a really hard-hitting movie. I mean, I think the thing that gets me about this movie every time is, spoiler alert again, when WALL-E kind of, like, he has his memory wiped through the course of the thing right at the end, and he doesn't remember her. And I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
No, he does, like, don't tell me that, like, we've gone through all this. He, like, the little robot, he falls in love, and he doesn't remember anything that happened. And then, like, they give kind of, like, the kiss, and it sparks him, and you're like, oh, it's a happy ending. It's like, because I thought, if this is going to end with his memory erased, this is easily the darkest movie I've ever seen in my life. And they did give you the happy ending, but there is so many points in this movie. It's just, like, it hits you from thinking about your own life, thinking about the earth. Like, this movie is fantastic. I will go to war for this movie anytime with any other movie.
Broski, finish it up.
Well, I mean, I can't really say much else that hasn't already been said, but I think, you know, one of the points, we're going back to what I said about The Lion King, one of the things that made The Lion King great was the voices and everything. The exact opposite could be said for this movie. They hardly use any voices, but it's still just as powerful and getting the point across and everything, and you can still... You know, like, WALL-E doesn't say anything. He beeps and boops, basically. But, you know, you can still form an attachment to a character like that. Like, he's trying to figure his place out in the world, and anybody can relate to that. So, yeah, I feel like, you know, like you were saying, it's not just a good Disney movie. I feel like if this movie wasn't made by Disney Pixar, or maybe it was just, you know, some indie studios CGI robot and kind of the same thing, still would be a good movie, but the fact that it was a Disney Pixar movie just adds more to it. But yeah, a lot of things going on in the movie, entertaining on the surface for kids, but then like you said, you know, you can go back and watch it with an older mindset and just have that much more of an appreciation for kind of the cleverness and the intelligence that was going on when they made the movie.
And he's adorable.
Here's the thing. Here was my initial reaction to it. Like halfway through the movie, like this movie was great, but I think it's the opposite, Broski. I think that Disney Pixar took a leap of faith making this movie because there isn't much to sell. Like I can only imagine the pitch of this movie or whoever designed it and created like the character and the storyline of it. Like there's not much to go by. Like what do you say?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, it's a robot who there's some deep stuff. Like how do you pitch this movie? And I think that Disney Pixar, this is some of the things where they can go out on a limb and say, no, we're going to try this and we're going to make it great. And if it fails, it really doesn't matter. But I think that it's great when we have go out on a limb here and make some really good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Jay, you're up for the last one. Start us off with Toy Story.
First off, Toy Story has my God, Tom Hanks as the lead man. So right away, like Tom Hanks is fantastic. The man just makes beauty out of anything he touches. So that immediately gets me up there. Toy Story was my favorite when I was a little kid. I think it was one of the first ones that really like stuck in my head and I always remembered. And it holds up. Like I've said, or like the last episode, I love Sid as the villain.
Yes.
He's that creepy, awful kid that everybody had in their life. And you're always like, he scares the living hell out of me. So like you get that emotional attachment where like, you know how awful this is the kid that was torturing animals and like all his toys were destroyed. And he just had the like laughter about it as he did it. So I loved that part immediately. And then my other thing, of course, is I love the little aliens.
Yes.
When they're
Pizza Planet
at the arcade. Yeah, at Pizza Planet.
Yeah.
There. And like so like as like a little, there's like the Timon and Pumbas and there's always that little character that I like to attach in each movie. And it's obviously the aliens in this movie. Even though shout out to the T-Rex, he was also my other favorite.
Yeah.
And after that. I think I think part of my thing is I'm a little jaded because I know Toy Story 2 and I know Toy Story 3, so like I kind of know what's coming. But I think the end always got me when I was a kid, where I was like, they're like, oh, nothing's as bad as Buzz, and then like when the puppy comes and it's like you kind of get this idea like, oh my God, when you first watch it, like these toys are just eventually going to be thrown away. And
yeah.
2 and 3 kind of like ruin that mystery to it, but
that's true.
I think that's a big thing about it. It's just kind of like the times changing and like how they're kind of at the disposal of a child. And you think about, I kind of thought about my own toys when I did that this time.
Broski, you go ahead.
Well, can we start off by saying Sid definitely eats a chocolate rabbit feed first?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of what Jay was saying, like, Toy Story for me was one of the ones that I remember being attached to a lot as a kid. The aliens, Sid, Buzz Lightyear, all of that. And again, great voices, Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, even all the other toys, have bit parts here and there, but they were all good. Each character, like, each one was like kind of quirky in their own way. Like, what was it? The piggy bank ham, like it was like, hey, I got an attitude, right? And like, Mr. Potato Head and everything. So they were all funny, and it was kind of funny to see like, a real life interpretation of some of those toys. So that was kind of funny, and you kind of like, again, like what Jay was saying, it's kind of sad when you think about like, ultimately it's about you throwing away your toys, and kind of that's the big thing of the movie. It's kind of like, realizing, hey, everybody grows up, and the things you enjoyed as a kid, you grow out of them. But on top of it, just kind of how we look back at this movie, you look back at with an appreciation for those things. Like the action figures I used to play with as a kid or whatever. You can have fond memories of that and remember the good times. And I feel like that's kind of, for the adult viewer of Toy Story, I think that's kind of what they're going for. Kind of bringing back like that childhood bliss of like, when all it was just, hey, I'm going to play with my toys, and that's my world. I can do whatever I want. I feel like that's kind of what Toy Story does, is it kind of, makes you feel a little bit of that again.
I think that Toy Story was probably, because this was the first computer animated, full CGI and things like that. This was pre-WALL-E. So this was dip their toe in the water. And yeah.
Wasn't this the first one?
This was the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
So this was their way to tell other stories. I think that a lot of the pre Pixar movies, they had to be, there was emotions like we were talking about Lion King, but this one, they're able to do subtle hints, and it can be more of a different type of story, and they could go a little bit deeper, and it's characters that you're not normally used to. I like this one because there is so many characters, and there's so much relatability between all the characters, and it follows a great story arc, and it had this was fantastic. So I mean, there's
from like a long cultural standpoint, like when you were a kid, everybody wanted a Buzz Lightyear. After the movie, like everybody wanted a Woody, and I wanted all the characters. Like Mr. Potato Head was like he had a renaissance as in the '90s because he's a kind of an old school.
Even
toy.
the little plastic
I want a Mr.
army
Potato
men
Head.
made an appearance in that movie. Yeah.
No, it kind of like changed entire childhood culture. I think that's a pretty big thing from a movie to be.
All right, so we got our 4. Little Mermaid's number 4, right? Now.
Yeah.
How do we want to do number 3? Because I know where my 3 is, and my number 3 is WALL-E, and it's again going back to what I was saying earlier. If we're talking Disney Pixar movies, this isn't what I envision as a Disney Pixar movie. I think of a Disney Pixar movie as something that when I visit Disney World, that I'm gonna see this character and live in that movie and live in that world and be able to buy merchandise and dress up and cosplay and talk to other people about it and grow up and rewatch it. I think that this is a fantastic movie made by Disney, but I just don't see it as a Disney movie. So I think that's why I can't put it number 1. And is that fair, guys? Do you guys agree with me? What do you think about that?
I mean, from my personal side, like WALL-E is my favorite movie of all the Disney Pixars. But if we're ranking them in terms of all the things that we're taking into consideration, culture, what you can do with it, and I like the thing that makes me kind of want to lean with you in ranking number 3 is I go like, okay, if I have a child, and I want to show him my childhood, like watch a movie with him. Like WALL-E's not going to be the one that I pick out and show him. It's going to be the 2 that we're going to name next. Like those are going to be the 2 I want to show my kid and have him really interested in. And if he wants to watch it 100 times when he's 4 years old, I'm going to say all 4 because I love those movies and I get where he's coming from.
Just building off of that, I feel like that's kind of what I was thinking. I feel like I would have a hard time putting WALL-E 1 or 2 over those 2 particular movies just because for us, kind of the newness of WALL-E, WALL-E came out probably when we were, late teens at least. Yeah. So it doesn't have that, sentimental feeling as much as, it can't be like a classic Disney movie. So that's why I was kind of I feel like as much as I like that movie, I don't know if I could warrant putting it above the other 2, just because, when you think of classic Disney movies, those are 2 of the 5, if they're you have to show your kid 5 Disney movies, those 2 are on that list of 5, for sure. So I feel like that's why those 2, you got to put them above WALL-E. Maybe years down the line, 3 other dudes will be having a conversation. Maybe WALL-E's, lived on. But I feel like at this point, for us in this argument, I feel like WALL-E's got to be under the other 2.
Fair enough. So Little Mermaid 4, WALL-E 3. Let's just spitball because now we're down to 2, and I mean, I almost want to say let's screw the people and say we're going to do a separate episode just talk about Lion King, Little Mermaid, but no, we're going to finish it. So, how do we want to break this down? We want to go by best villain, best story, best character.
Let's go to categories. Okay. Song, villain. Yeah, let's go. So, who has a better main character? I'm gonna say Toy Story.
Yeah, Toy Story has all better. Overall, every character in Toy Story is better than in The Lion King, right?
I'd say Timon and Pumbaa might have a case over some of the other
but they're
characters.
not the main characters. They're ancillary characters.
But Tom Hanks as Woody just trumps anything in The Lion King characters.
Best villain. Who's a better villain, Sid or actually Woody? Sid and Woody versus Scar.
That's true. I don't know. I mean,
I think that Scar is a very relatable. It's the brother.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
family. That's very instant relatable. There's always the brother trying to overtake the prince and things like that. And
Also, like Scar's a murderer.
Yeah.
Like, I think that makes him the better, like the more significant villain here.
and he's an adult. Let's remember, like, yes, we all
That's
know,
true.
we all
Yeah.
know Sid. We all know that kid. You know, messed up family, got family issues. You know, who knows? Maybe mom and dad have some drug problems, low income housing. You know, but Scar's an adult. Like that. You know, maybe
Yeah.
Sid turns into Scar.
right.
But Sid is
Yeah.
still, and by the way, I think that the toys ended up messing up Sid more at the end when
Yeah.
Woody
Sid
turns
might
in-
be in therapy now.
Sid is
After
definitely in
that.
therapy.
Yeah, that kid's
You know,
doomed.
so but but Scar, yeah, definitely he's the worst villain. I mean, like you said, he's an adult, he's murderous, he's pre-plotted, predetermined. I mean,
Right, and he
brutal.
killed his brother. Like,
Yeah.
not only was he a murderer, he murdered his brother because he was jealous of his brother. Like,
Yeah.
Fratricide. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
The songs definitely in The Lion King, right? I mean, I don't even know any Toy Story songs.
You've got a friend in
You've
me.
got a friend
Yeah,
in
that's
me?
the only
Yeah,
one.
I guess, yeah, but it's not as memorable.
But it's not as good as it could.
I mean, that's just what's his face, Randy Newman making a song for whatever. It's
Yeah, that's
not
right.
like you're defining the movie like I Can't Wait to Be King or Hakuna Matata or even like Can You Feel the Love Tonight. Like
Yeah.
those songs were
Oh,
all
I forgot about
part
that.
of the movie.
Yeah.
Like
or the Hazagenyas.
Right.
Yeah.
that was all. Like I feel like the music in that movie
Yeah,
was
it's
scene
not
building,
close.
whereas the music in
Well, I
Toy
mean,
Story.
and just think of like how popular is Lion King the musical.
Sure,
That settles
yeah.
it right there. Yeah.
I think it's really unfair to visualize both because one's a cartoon, one's computer animated. But you know, like Broski was saying before, the animation of Lion King, colorful. It explores, you know, the beautiful jungles of Africa and the shitty parts of
Yeah.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
That's some animation that holds up.
Yeah.
I will say.
They had, I mean, they had a like embarrassment of riches by using the African safari. Like that's an easy thing to make beautiful, but
They
they
killed
killed
They
it.
it,
did,
so.
yeah.
So that's and listen, first animation killed that too. So we're gonna say that's dead even for what they had to do because I don't
Yeah.
think it's unfair because
Yeah.
it's computer generated. You know, to say hey that's a better visually looking movie. I think just visually,
Sure.
they both do their job, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Overall appeal. I think Toy Story is naturally gonna sell more merch and have more play with kids, right? Because
Yeah.
there's all the toys. That's what it is. It's Toy Story.
The costumes,
Costume,
for,
yeah.
you know, I dressed up as Woody as for
Yeah.
Halloween. Like,
And another thing, like, obviously, when we look at, we're just looking at the first two movies, really. But when you look at, we know Toy Story 2 and 3. Can either of you really tell me the sequels to The Lion King? Like,
They don't exist.
I
Lion
can't.
King 1.5. Lion King 1.5.
They
man.
don't exist. That's the answer. It's like
Right,
Godfather
right.
Part 3.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. There's obviously more staying power. And then, because, obviously those other Lion King movies didn't stick, but the characters in the other Toy Story movies are still around. You had the female cowboy Jessie, she was around. The horse, Bullseye, the prospector.
Oh, Bullseye.
Then you had the purple bear in the third one, and so
Oh, yeah.
Barbie and Ken. Like they kept adding more and building upon
kept doing
more of
well.
a world, and it worked. Unlike the Lion King, which failed and nobody knows about it.
So any other things we have to kind of try to compare the two?
Plot, I guess.
Plot,
Like the
yeah,
actual
plot, story. I
don't
think
know who I'd really lean towards.
Yeah, that's
I think it's
tough.
Lion King. I think it's Lion King because of it's got the worst death that we talked about,
That's
and
true.
it really sends you on an
More
emotional
emotional. Yeah.
roller coaster.
Yeah.
You have your highs.
There's
you
more of a
have your lows.
romance in Lion King, whereas the romance is kind of non-existent in Toy Story. I mean, there's a
And also, like yeah, Toy Story has like its moments where like, oh, what's gonna happen? But like, it doesn't have the emotional like people dying, and yeah, it doesn't have the serious moments like Lion King does for a child movie, which makes it the plot more enticing. I think.
yeah.
It's got the messed up stuff from from Sid torturing, and all of, like, there's a lot of little like blips here and there.
You just don't get the emotional, like this one's animals or that one's toys. I think that actually makes a difference. Like you just don't get as attached to a toy as you do.
That's
an
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So overall, what do we want to say? Jay, I'll let you get the first vote on who's 1 and who's 2.
So it kind of looks like we kind of went back and forth with each category.
Yeah.
And I think with the overall appeal, and I think something that's really important is how we said how we're not supposed to count the other 2 movies, but the strength of Toy Story to be able to build 2 sequels onto it and crush it each time.
Yeah.
I think says a lot about Toy Story itself. That's why I'm going to rank Toy Story 1 and Lion King 2.
Broski, what do you think?
I think I think I'm going to have to agree with Jay, but maybe I might if I was to sit down and have to pick, there's certainly a chance that I could pick The Lion King over Toy Story. It's definitely a powerful movie, but I feel like Jay was saying, the fact that those characters were just so much more, like, Simba's an character, like Woody and Buzz Lightyear, they're just so much better of characters, and I think that's kind of the biggest part of it. So, I think Toy Story deserves to be number 1.
I think so too, and it even goes to the fact that Toy Story Land is being built in Disney. They aren't building a Lion King land or a Wall-E land. They're building an entire Toy Story land, and it just shows Toy Story's number 1. I think that's safe to we all agree Toy Story's number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lion King is a great second, and
yes.
Probably, like you said, when you got your 4-year-old kid, this may be, Toy Story and Lion King may be the first movies you plop, because it's great overall. Everything is great, and you don't feel bad about showing your kids and saying, hey,
right.
We want you to grow up, with a little cowboy, a little Simba.
Yes.
You want to be king. You want to be bigger than everything. So those 2 movies, I think,
it's
are
very
top-notch.
like you were saying before. Your point on the Little Mermaid, and the image of young girls, with these 2 movies, that's out of the window because it's animals and it's toys, and they don't really create that kind of there's no princess to look up to. There's no prince to look up to. It's just animals and toys. It's a little more cut and dry.